the VDMA CEO's Thought Leadership Series. And this is the first edition of our Thought Leadership Series, Sindhu. And it's a privilege and honor for us to have you in our inaugural session. Before we start, friends, I would just like to briefly introduce Ms. Sindhu Gangadharan. She's the Senior Vice President and Managing Director at SAP Lab India. Mrs. Sindhu Gangadharan is SVP and Managing Director at SAP Labs in India, responsible for SAP's development facilities in Bangalore, Pune, Mumbai, and Gurgaon. SAP Labs India is the largest R&D center outside SAP's headquarters in Germany and a leading hub for innovation and a hotspot for talent and diversity. Sindhu joined SAP 2 decades ago when SAP Labs India had just set up its operations in Bangalore. She later moved to SAP's headquarters in Waldorf, Germany, working on various products, technology, and innovation platforms. She has studied computer science engineering from Bangalore University and began her career at SAP in CRM middleware space. Sindhu has played a pivotal role in shaping SAP's integration strategy by growing SAP's integration product portfolio. She has been instrumental in bringing to life SAP's vision and strategy of intelligent enterprise by orchestrating the end-to-end process delivery roadmaps. So Sindhu, pleasure to have you with us today. Sindhu, I think the last 3 months' activities have been unprecedented. If we look at the COVID, I think it has affected 188 geographies all over the world. And in fact, many pundits have called it the black swan of 2020. Some use the term butterfly effect also. But I think the reality is that everyone has been impacted globally by COVID. So my first question to you, Sindhu, is what has been the impact of COVID-19 on SAP Labs in India, as well as the SAP Labs operations globally? If you could share your thoughts on that, Sindhu.
Sure. First and foremost, Mr. Nath, it's great to be here on the VDMA Thought Leadership Series. Thank you also for that kind introduction from your side. You rightly put it, Mr. Nath, that the last 3 months, what we are seeing globally as well as here in India, it's been unprecedented. I mean, no one knew what was coming our way, so we've all evolved. But if you ask me in terms of what has been the impact of COVID-19 on SAP Labs India and particularly also SAP globally, I have to say, in a nutshell, I think we haven't seen any kind of negative impact whatsoever. I tried in detail why that is the case, and we've looked at it also from various parameters, right? And it's clear that it's a very unusual experience that we have been facing over the last months, no doubt about it. But if I just look at it from an overall perspective, we've still been able to keep up with all our commitments, keep up with all our timelines. Internally, we also looked at if we had any impact when it comes to our productivity levels. So we haven't seen any drops from a productivity point of view as well. Despite all our employees actually already from March 15th, before India went into a complete lockdown, a week before we from Labs India went into a work from home mode, right? So this gave us just a 1 week's advantage, if you may will, to just very quickly ensure that everybody has the right resources when it comes to working from home and all that. And probably, Labs India, we always had a policy in place when it came to working from home. Of course, never exercised in this depth and this length, I should say. But I think that kind of preparedness of being able to switch your working environment from the office to home really helped us, and also kind of helped us being prepared for this longer periods of working from home. So like I was saying, despite all employees working from home in Labs India, all the boxes were ticked, and also business, it was pretty much, I would say, of course, there was the initial kind of getting used to your routine, and this is also the feedback we get from employees, but it was business as usual pretty much for us. And if you look at our customers as well, they were very positively surprised and very pleased by our response to them in these really trying Also, our meetings, workshops, everything continued to run as planned, of course, in a virtual fashion. And our teams, like I said, were accustomed to this mode even before because we had the policy in place, and that also helped in making that transition very seamless. What we've done globally is also employees who needed to be on site for whatever business critical reasons. Once this initial stringent lockdown period was over, we also ensured that we followed all the necessary precautions when it came to safe maintaining social distancing, and also any kinds of guidance that we got from health authorities, as well as our own global pandemic task force, right? So the good thing, if you just look at our R&D locations, we are distributed across the globe, and we also use that opportunity to also learn from some of the early responses from China. Our labs in China share in terms of how did they reopen and things like that. So our global pandemic force task force also worked with the local pandemic task forces across the globe to also ensure best practices were shared and very quickly also duplicated across locations. And I have to say that also from a customer point of view, many customers are also realizing that remote installations and also remote go lives are not hard at all, and it's quite a reality now as we speak, in just reflecting back on the last 3 months. And I have to say, this also reiterates SAP's position when it comes to our focus on digitalization, and also it has expedited customers thinking in terms of how enterprises need to go digital, and also our strategies around the intelligent enterprise, our focus on integration, our focus on innovation has all been resonating quite well. What we also did at the beginning, Mr. Nath, is to help also organizations worldwide and our ecosystems worldwide. We also opened up a lot of our technologies completely for free for our customers to be able to benefit from it. Like, for example, the Ariba Discovery Center was opened up so that any buyer could post any kind of immediate sourcing needs, right? And any supplier could
Right.
respond back. And this was in the initial phases, it was all about requests for ventilators, PPEs, masks, and things like that, which was so important and necessary given the time. So we opened up a lot of our technologies, which also helped the society, helped the ecosystem to also kind of address the situation at hand pretty well.
Right. So that's very encouraging to hear, Sindhu, that SAP was more or less could gear up quickly to this new circumstances or to this pandemic. Sindhu, actually, the pandemic has also, I think, impacted the businesses of all the companies. So to conserve cash is going to be one of the routes that the companies are looking at. So in this regard, Sindhu, I wanted to ask you now, SAP Labs, you're into development of new technologies,
Yeah.
new products also, innovation, you're into a lot of innovation. Now, because of these unusual circumstances, would that impact the innovation endeavors also of SAP Labs, Sindhu?
No, I think, like I said, Mr. Nath, and I think that's a valid question. And in general, if you just reflect on, yes, every company is looking at how do we make sure that the next 3 years, and how are we keeping in terms of our promises and commitments, and keeping up with aspirations that we have in terms of innovation, delivery, and so on, right? However, contrary to the perception in terms of the abrupt shift of all employees working from home, I think we are very grateful in the IT and ITS sector that this kind of shift that happened, yes, pretty suddenly, but at the same time, the shift that happened did not, like I said, result in any kind of impact in productivity or any kind of the experience in terms of timelines and so on. And we have seen no slowdown when it comes to also our delivery commitment to our customers, and also no
Right.
changes, if you ask me, when it comes to the product development schedules. In fact, if you must have seen from the SAP side, as part of our financial results that we went out with end of Q2, we also had our updated guidance where we declared also the recent financial results for Q2, where we clearly shows that despite these challenging times, SAP continues to remain healthy, continues to remain very stable. And just last week, Mr. Nath, we had our flagship customer event called Sapphire. Usually, this is the time of the year when we are all in Orlando and actually sharing what's coming up and with our customers and partners. This time, the whole event was virtual and opened up. And you must have heard that we also went ahead with very boldly making also announcements when it comes to two new product areas besides a lot of the other important topics that were discussed. I'd like to call out this. One is the whole Climate 21 topic. And the Climate 21 is all about helping businesses be both profitable, but at the same time be sustainable, right? And so with the Climate 21 program, our attempt is how can we support all our customers to become sustainable enterprises. And the idea is that we build in the required analytical capabilities as well as all the transactional capabilities right into the core of our business processes to enable enterprises to track their greenhouse gas emissions, right? So so it's a very huge step, if you ask me, we're taking. And this started all the way from back at when we had the World Economic Forum. Our CEO, Mr. Christian Klein, was there and had made very strong commitments in terms of how we are going to address this as an organization and how we are going to enable other organizations who run SAP to also address this whole topic of sustainability. And I believe it's a very huge step we are taking when it comes to climate action, which is vital for all of us and also for our future generations. Also at Sapphire, Mr. Nath, we addressed our industry cloud initiative, and I'm sure all of you at VDMA will also be very thrilled to hear that. And here, the idea is also together with our partners, we are offering our solution for the industry cloud, and this is really about looking at our end-to-end processes and also extending our end-to-end business processes with the capabilities of the intelligence suite to also look at customers' core processes in the various industries and the 25 industries that we support, right? So the idea is also about delivering innovative vertical solutions from SAP in close collaboration with our partners. And we're building this whole thing on the business technology platform, using capabilities like open APIs, open process models. We are looking into also offering common business services on a cloud platform that customers can actually consume. So overall, if you ask me, we have stayed to our commitments, we have stayed to our roadmaps, and at the same time, we are also we shared just last week with the world on some of the recent innovations that we are going to also work on, Climate 21 and Industry Cloud, like I outlined.
Very commendable, Sindhu. I think hearing about both these projects, Climate 21 and also the Industry Cloud. And there's a saying, as the going gets tough, the tough get going. And I think that is very much applicable for SAP also, that despite of these present circumstances, you're still going ahead with the plans and the projects that you have that were conceived earlier on. So congratulations on that, Sindhu.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sindhu, actually, when the 2008 crisis, when the financial crisis hit the world, a recovery was, I would say, a quick recovery was possible because of demand creation. In the present circumstances, actually, we are hit on both the fronts. The supply side is impacted, the demand side is also impacted. What is, in your opinion, Sindhu, how can demand be quickly created? Because if India has to reboot, we are talking about the global recession setting in, the global economy going into a dip or negative 6%. We are talking of India's GDP going down into a negative phase of minus 4%. So there is what needs to be done if we need to reboot the economy is the creation of demand. So in your opinion, Sindhu, how can this demand be created?
Yeah. Great question, and indeed, a lot of also thoughts, debates, ideas being discussed at various levels, organization level, state level, central government level, and so on. And it's
Right.
clear, right, Mr. Nath, the world is really going through one of the most challenging times, and I think the term unprecedented has been used multiple times, so I'll try to avoid that. But indeed, right,
Right.
so there's no doubt that this whole situation that we are facing will have certainly have a downturn on the economy. And if I just also reflect on some of the numbers, like you said, the International Monetary Fund also revised the global GDP, right? The growth rate, growth estimate from 3.3 just 3 months back to a contraction of 3%, and which is indeed unforeseen, right? And I think since the Great Depression in 1929, this has not happened at all, right? Having said that, and if I just look back in terms of locally, we should be also positive, because the markets in APAC definitely should be able to face this challenge in a much better way, right? Because the IMF GDP forecast also suggests that for India, being the fastest growing economy in 2020, this is also something that we can capitalize upon. And however, at the same time, caution be there, that we definitely depend on how we are also able to flatten the curve, because the numbers still are increasing in several parts of India. But if I just look at it from a positive perspective, we should definitely consider ourselves fortunate that the onslaught of the pandemic, I mean, if you just look at from sheer numbers, right? Most of the Asian countries have been able to kind of brace the impact and also contain the pandemic to a great extent. Even in India, the way we have kind of managed it for the population we have and the numbers we see, it's relatively, I'm saying relatively, still somewhat in control. Let us see when we go through the peaks now in July, August. We'll have to see that. But what I want to come back from an economy point of view, this definitely has the promise that these economies in APAC will slowly but steadily get back to the whole growth, right? And the massive stimulus packages that pretty much every of the larger economies of the world have put into will also help in kind of businesses, as well as, more importantly, these local economies to revive and thrive. And if you, since you brought up the economic meltdown in 2008 and what we are seeing today, indeed, yes, yes, there are differences, but at the same time, I'm not a believer in the fact that businesses should just let their fortunes be dictated by just a few select economies, but it should also need a a more detailed focus from a local and strong local business ecosystem. I think that is key. And also, as a strong proponent of technology, I'm also a believer that technology will no longer be considered as an enabler for businesses, but it will become, or it has become, an elixir for business transformation of all forms and all sizes of businesses. Now, India, the more I talk to CIOs here, and pretty much every conversation with customers, both from SAP and even from the industry, is going through a wave of digitalization. There's no doubt about it. And we are seeing a lot of dramatic shifts when it comes to businesses and how they are transforming themselves, leveraging technologies, be it AI, ML, IoT, RPA, augmented reality in the retail space. A lot of the transformation we are seeing happening. So, and at SAP, we are absolutely aware of this. And this is also why our focus has been on enabling organizations to become true intelligent enterprises, give them the framework that they need to transform their organizations into true intelligent enterprises. And also, again, coming back to India, I think the government of India has also infused significant sums of money to also accelerate the economy. And I believe that this will also help once the kind of economic activities slowly start up in all parts of the nation. Right now, it's indeed a delicate balance between safeguarding the life and the health of citizens and also resuming the economic activity lives versus livelihood of people, right? And the government has also laid out quite some strong initiatives like Digital India or Make in India, which I believe will also help in bringing the economy back to track if we remain focused and if we remain true to the promise of leveraging technology to also help that kind of transformation. And overall, I'm pretty sure and very confident that with patience and perseverance, India will definitely reboot at the earliest possible.
Right. But that's very encouraging words. Thank you, Sindhu. And I think what you mentioned also about technology playing a larger role, I think that is going to become certainly very, would become essential also. In fact, we had also conducted a webinar, a panel discussion on automation.
Yeah.
And the general belief was that, especially in these period of crisis, it's not only the large companies, but even the MSMEs would have to think about automation
Yes.
more deeply and perhaps look at low-hanging fruits, what could be adopted using automation.
Yes.
Because I think we would have difficulties on multiple fronts also with the migrant labor problem, shortage of labor. I think these would be the necessary steps required.
Yeah,
Sindhu,
absolutely.
also I think the present circumstances, as we have mentioned, these are unprecedented. We talk about the VUCA world. Now,
Yeah.
these are also challenges for leaders because these conditions have not come earlier, and we are facing truly new crisis in these in this difficult period. What would be your advice, Sindhu, as a leader, if you were to give 2 or 3 tips to our members? What would be your suggestion for the CEOs, for the MDs?
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Nath, like you said, indeed, these are unprecedented times. We can't refer to any kind of a playbook which tells you, okay, follow
Right.
the steps and here's the recipe for success. And I believe that the most important task of a leader, be it in government or be it in a private sector like ours, is definitely to infuse confidence and also positivity, which is so much needed in these times. Because the pandemic really caught everybody by surprise, right? And people have also scrambled, if you ask me, to adopt to the new normal. And for multiple factors, maybe the work part of it is covered, but for a lot of people, it's also about balancing act between their private spheres of life and work spheres and other spheres of life as well, right? And it's all coming together, and you somehow need to kind of bring it all with a lot of hope and positivity. So it's like I said, it's a new experience to everybody. And therefore, this times also call for extremely strong leadership and the will to emerge victorious at all costs, despite the huge challenges and setbacks that we face. So therefore, if you ask me, a couple of tips that I would like to share with the leaders here on this round is, first and foremost, lead with confidence. I think that is so important. The second would be to lead with clarity, right? It's also important to always translate how business decisions are being cascaded into the organization. So leading with clarity becomes super important. And the third would be communicate transparently and display empathy, right? And I think these are kind of guiding philosophies that I have been using, Mr. Nath, and I think that can be applied in these times.
Right. I think these are very good tips. Thank you, Sindhu. As you mentioned, I think in this difficult phase, empathy becomes also very, very important, and to show the workforce that the organization is with the workforce and working together to take the organization forward. I think that's very important.
Yes.
Sindhu, my last question to you is more on a personal nature. Now, during the lockdown period, managing family, managing children, as well as handling work, being a leader in the industry, I think it's a big challenge. How has been your experience these last 3 months on these various fronts with the family, with the work pressure, and the domestic pressure. How have you managed to overcome that?
Yeah, I think, like I said, we initially the initial couple. If I just reflect back on myself, Mr. Nath, the initial weeks was trying to find the right kind of rhythm, if you want to call it, right? So everybody trying to, so the kids working, studying from home, so they also had virtual classrooms. My husband and me working from home. So initially, it was all about trying to find the rhythm to your day to day. And for me personally, what has worked is really starting the day like I would just start my day if I would go to the office. So getting ready, getting prepared, in the sense of even getting into my work clothes, which I think has also helps me kind of get that mental shift. Doesn't matter if you sit in your office at home or and that I think has also kind of helped a lot. And then I think it's also a lot of discipline and structure in your day to
Right.
day, which also helps. And staying focused to a certain extent, it's quite easy to get distracted. You have sometimes your children coming in, and which is okay, right? I mean, that's part of the deal. We're also trying to adapt to the and to the new norm. I have to say, it's been very positive now looking back at those initial weeks and how far
Right.
we've come. I even tell my team at work, now we have to adapt back to the normal of getting back to the office.
Absolutely.
So these are some of the things that I think that has helped. So it's really a lot of structure, discipline, focus, and kind of treating your work from home as good as you would get ready to go to work, right?
Right. And I think especially for the children, Sindhu, seeing you at home for so many months at a stretch, they would not have been used to that. It must be a welcome, welcome break for them to see you
Indeed,
at home.
indeed, no
Yeah.
doubt about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Sindhu. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, your valuable thoughts with us. And I would like to end with a quote from Charles Darwin. So he said that it is not the strongest of the species that will survive, nor would it be the most intelligent ones, but the ones who are most adaptable to the change. I think that is what, as we go ahead, as we go into a new phase or the new normal, as we call it, Sindhu, I think the companies will have to adapt to new business challenges, challenges that they have never faced earlier, and look for solutions out of the box thinking. I think the leaders would require to think out of the box and think of means how to keep the workforce together and the motivational level, because as you also mentioned, I think the next few months or the next year is not going to be easy for any business, whichever field of activity they are. So on behalf of the German Engineering Federation, Sindhu, wishing SAP Labs, wishing you all the very best. Stay safe, stay well, and above all, stay optimistic. Thank you very much for sparing time to be with us, and we value the interaction with you. Thank you so much, Sindhu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nath. Thank you to everybody from VDMA as well for listening in. It's been a great conversation today, and looking forward to continuing this journey with you. Thank you.
Sure, pleasure. Thank you. Goodbye. Nice.
Goodbye.
Yeah.